Hi, all. Welcome back to my shop. I like turning boxes. Boxes are fun things to me, and what the heck? That's what for me wood turning is all about is the fun. So turn what you enjoy turning. I like threaded boxes. This one happens to be threaded, but it's a little small to be real practical for anything. And here lately, I've started making larger ones and cross grain boxes, which is basically a bowl with a lid. So here, about 6 weeks ago, I had a piece of holly that was sitting in my shop that was green. So I roughed out a bowl and I roughed out a top, and it's bone dry now. I put a little anchor seal on the end grain to minimize any risk of cracking just on the outside. You don't need to do it so much on the inside. That is because it's larger, it's going to dry faster the inside. So you seal it to slow down the moisture that might cause cracking. So let's go ahead and finish turning this. So most boxes are made out of end grain because the movement tends to be a little more uniform between the top and the bottom. Cross grain, as we know, is going to move more, so you got to make a loose fit lid. But just to give you an indication of that movement, if I look at the tenon and I go the narrow part of the tenon, it's just under 57 millimeter, but because it's turned oval, it's almost 59 millimeters. So that's a difference of about 3 millimeter difference. So we're going to clean that up. Uh, when I turn something green, I make it about 10%. So I've got a little bit of room here. So we're going to mount this. And I can still see the chuck mark, so I'm going to put it right back the way it was chucked before. And I've got it snugged up. All right, so I marked the inside where I think the jaws will fit, because I'm going to put a temporary recess in here and turn it around to do the outside. So I'm going to use these larger jaws. So I've got it marked on the inside about where that recess is going to be. This is that technique that I learned from Richard Raffin. And I just put a little bit of a recess there. And at the same time, I'm going to clean up the walls here just a little bit. I'm going to do that with a bowl gouge. Come in with the bevel straight in, handle out about 45 degrees. And let's lower this tool rest just a hair. And I'm going to go ahead and flatten it a little bit first with a pull cut. We're going to take that out and remount the other chuck. Now let's fit that in there. I just put it in there snug. That's right. That's looking pretty good. Now I can do the outside of this bowl, or box, or bowl with a lid. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, right? I want to decide what decoration I want to put, if anything, on the outside. And I think I like to put a band through here and texture it. But before I do that, I need to sand. I've got a little bit of a fray in here on the edge. Let me just kind of get rid of some of that. Just there we go. So I need to sand this before I do anything else. And before I sand it, I'm going to go ahead and use a radius scraper. I'll use my refiner here. And I I think I want to have this tucked under a little bit here on the corner. Okay, all the tool marks are gone. I'm going to go ahead and sand this off camera before we texture. The design of the box is going to be a little bit like this one, also made out of holly. I thought I was going to texture through here, but I think I'll probably use some Zentangle similar to this. So I need to make a bead here at the join and a bead here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to use a point tool, get the speed up a little bit. And then maybe right about there, and then right about there. And I want that bead to be proud, so I'm going to come up under there. I'm going to switch, instead of this 1/2 inch bowl gouge, I'm going to switch to a spindle gouge. So I'm just going to get the speed up a little bit. Just come up here and just skim the surface up to that bead. And then I'm going to take this band inside those beads down just a little bit. And then I'm just going to shape that bead just a little bit. Whoa! Came in at a, didn't engage it cleanly. So, let's bring it over and just scrape the edge of that bead a little bit here. It might be easier actually for me to use this scraper to do that. Just knock off the edges a little bit. Ooh, I still got some damage there I've got to remove. So let's sand this surface again, and then we'll turn it around. And I don't want to forget to true up the tenon here, so let's do that. Unit's only 3 millimeter out. That's, what's that, 1/16 of an inch? 1/8 of an inch. Then bring it across. Okay, and that's good. Now let's go ahead and take it off and reverse it. Let's see if it'll fit in this chuck jaw, and if so, I won't have to bother to change chucks. And it will. That looks good. Okay. So now we're just going to thin these walls down and true it up from a little bit of warping that it had when it dried. And we're going to start with rounding over this bead surface first. So I'm just going to drop the handle and just refine that edge a little bit here. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way. So we'll come straight in like we did before. And that end grain fights me all the way across, so I'll finish with a scraper. And I've got it much smoother. Now let's go ahead and get a scraper in there to kind of get rid of the tool marks and flatten the bottom. I'm going to start with this conventional round nose scraper. Just pivot it across. Mostly getting rid of tool marks. I can still see some rough edges in here. So let's rotate it up just a little bit. And I think I've gotten rid of most of those. Rest of it will sand out. Okay, I check it with calipers. And I realize I can do a little bit more here in the corner and just a touch across the bottom. And I'll do my final cleanup with a negative rake scraper with a profile that's a little closer to matching the bottom of this box. And that feels good. I'm going to switch to doing the lid, and I'm going to use the base for maybe a bit of a jam chuck for a little while. I've got to get this size to match this bead. So I'm going to mark, in order that I can reuse this chuck, I'm going to mark where the number 1 jaws are to make it just a little bit easier to know where to put those jaws, so it's more likely to run true when I remount it. Now, this lid, I cut a recess on this lid so I can do the outside. We're going to use this recess to refine the tenon that I've got. And we're not going to worry about it being off just a little bit. I think it's going to run true enough. I need to clean up that tenon because I can tell that tenon is doesn't have nice square walls. So let's clean that up. And again, I'm going to use my detail gouge. And I'm going to use my 40mm jaws. And let's make sure that that's not going to bottom out. That'll be okay. Even though this is a little longer tenon than I need. I left plenty of room because I wasn't sure whether I was going to turn this into a handle or install a bead. Actually, I've got a tenon here and I've got a tenon here. I can use both of them. So let's go ahead and turn it around. Put it on the other set of jaws. Okay, so now we're going to do the inside of the lid. I'm using a smaller chuck with jaws that fit this. We're going to primarily adjust the rim to the right size and make a little tenon that'll fit inside here and level this off at the same time. So first thing, I think I want to go ahead and take this down, and I can see it's a little about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to use a small bowl gouge for that. Well, it's almost running true. That's a start. And then we're going to clean up this surface a little bit. And now let's see if I've got it almost the right size. I need to bring it down another 1/16 of an inch. And then I need to measure the inside of this bowl because that's where the tenon is going to go. It's going to fit inside here. Okay, so let's mark that first. Well, let's get this a little flatter here first. It's a little a little bit warped. Okay, let this end touch. This end not going to touch, or it'll come flicking over. We want to get it right about there. So let's just and that's pretty close, and then we can adjust it from there. So now I'm going to make that tenon before I do anything else, and then we'll worry about adjusting outside. Straight in, and then out, in, and out, in, and out. Okay, it doesn't need to be a real deep tenon. I want it slightly concave to help it sit flat, but that's a little too concave. All right, now let's test fit it. Not too far off though. And you think you might be tempted to come in here with a skew or a scrape or something like that and do this, but you'd really have some problems because this is cross grain and you're going to rip up the grain. So you got to come into the sideways to get that tenon right. Almost. We're going to take our time because I want this to be a snug fit, because I'm going to ultimately jam this on there to finish the top. Whoop. Yeah. Not quite. All right, let's see. Okay, now I'm going to get this a little bit big still. That's a little bit more. It looks like it's come down. It's getting a little thicker, so I might be able to put it deeper. Yep, just about right. Got just a, well, this corner's kind of sharp. I want to round it over where those beads will meet to help disguise the join. There's some seasonal movement, so. Okay, that's where I want it to be. That's good. Now I need to go ahead and make a bead there. I think I'm going to do that when I do the other side. Now, meanwhile, this recess is off about 3 millimeters, just like the original tenon was off. So I need to clean that up a little bit. I'm just going to come in with this box scraper. Well, that's not going to be clean enough shoulder. Let's try something a little different. Come in here with this skew to clean it up on its side. Okay. All right, I think I've got a recess that I can deal with. I've got the tenon. I'm going to clear this out just a little bit, but not much. Mostly just make it evenly concave. So let's get after that with the scraper. So I'm going to use this and come in there. And I think that looks good. Need to sand this inside, maybe put a few decorations in it. So I'll do that off camera. You don't need to get bored by watching me sand. Okay, I've got the inside sanded along the rim here. I want to decorate this before, because once we leave this, we're not going to be able to do anything else with it. So I'm going to go ahead and try to put a little rosette. I did a recent video on this technique. Slow the speed down, no more than about 400, using a Sorby micro spiraling system. I'm using the sharp edge, and I'm coming in almost at center. And there we go. So now we're going to reverse this using that recess we just made. or we just straightened out from the warping. We take this off. And the other thing I want to do is I want to measure the inside so we don't make the inside bigger than the outside. So I'm going to use a set of calipers, and rather than use these inexpensive plastic ones that slip, I'm going to use actually a step finder to keep that depth set, so I can move it to the outside and easily see where I am. So I look down, touch the middle, and I look down where that's just about right. So now I can go from here, and I know where I'm going to run out, because I'm going to get rid of most of this, because I'm going to turn a knob out of this little piece of exotic wood. So the top's going to be a little flatter. Set of large, fairly large bowl jaws, that kind of an intermediate size, larger than the normal jaws, but they were sized for this recess to begin with. When I transfer the inside to the outside, I want to kind of mark it with a pencil to get a feel for what is the thickest. I want gives me a pretty good feel right there. I want it thick enough that when I drill a hole, it will hold a peg on here and not go through. So let me double check that one more time. And yeah, I think that'll work. I think the first thing I want to do is define this bead that's going to be along the edge, and I think I'm going to do that using this point tool, and then I'll know what my reference point is when I bring this down. So there's that bead. Now we're going to use that bowl gouge to just bring this down. Just wasting wood here. Now, let me think about, since it's going to go to about here, I've got all this extra wood. Do I want any kind of little bead or feature at the bottom? And I don't think I do, so I think I can get rid of all of this. Okay, I want to leave a flat spot big enough for the outside of this, so I need to bring it out just a little bit. Flatten it just a bit more. Let's see how I did it with this knob. I just had it round. Add the bead, then it just rounded over, and I think probably I'll do the same thing. So let's just go ahead and round it on down. So just like doing the outside of the bowl, small to large. So let me move my tool rest just a little bit, and we'll come in here and round this over. Okay, now I think I'm going to go ahead and use my shear scraper to kind of smooth this out. recognizing I still need to fix this bead to get it even all the way around. So. Now I've got it defined all the way around. That's good. Now all I need to do is even this out all the way down. I think I wore out this burr. I need to refresh this burr. So to do that, I just remove the old burr. I can do this 4 or 5 times before I take it back to the grinder. And then I use this carbide honing rod and just bring it over a couple of times. Gives it a very fine but a very strong burr. And then I'll take one more pass before I sand. Very light touch. Just getting rid of those tool marks. Okay, I've carefully checked my measurements, and I can drill the depth of this Forstner bit, this part right here. That leaves room for a little bit of a divot in the middle, and I still won't break through. This is a slow drilling operation, no more than about 500. Don't need to get in a hurry. And that'll give us plenty of glue surface for that peg. I'm going to go ahead and take this off. Now we're going to work on the peg. We'll come back and sand this off. I'll sand this off camera. Okay, I found out I'd written on this in pencil. It's mountain mahogany, very, very dense wood this came from out near Las Vegas. So I'm going to round it off, get the speed up a little bit. I'm just going to use a skew for a peeling cut. Get this round. And because I don't have a tenon on this, I'm going to go ahead and bring up tailstock support just to reduce the vibration in case there's one of these that's not holding it very well. I've got a tailstock extension, thinking it'd make it easier for me to jockey this banjo around. I haven't used it much. But it does give a lot more clearance here, which is a challenge on this 3520C, where they made bigger blocks and added more cast iron. One of the things I don't really like about it. Okay. I need to mark how long this peg's going to be, and this is a little bit uneven, so I need to true that up. I'm going to use a skew. All right, now I'll clean the rest of it up in a minute. All right, now I've measured how long this peg needs to be. So I'm going to mark that. And we'll go ahead and just use a parting tool, I think, for that. Take it down to a 1/2 inch. Let me see if I've got a 1/2 inch wrench. Let's see, I said a 1/2 inch, but I believe, let me double check. Actually, I drilled that hole 5/8 of an inch. So I do have a 5/8 inch wrench here handy. And it has been ground to cut, but this wood is so dense, I think I'd be better off doing it with a sharper tool. Okay, I'll just clean that up just a little bit with a skew. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and trim the end off. Okay. Now, I've still got a little ways to go to round. I got to figure out what kind of shape I want to put on it as a knob. This one has got a little bit of a cone here, a little bit of a feature here. I think some texturing on there would right here would look nice, so I think that's what I'm going to wind up doing. So actually, this is the orientation. This is going to be the top end, and that's going to be the bottom, so I need to think about that feature. And I'm just going to round this over a little bit. And okay, and I need to make that a bit concave right here, so I'm going to use the skew to come in there and just raise it up just a little bit and push it in. Okay, put a little bit of a chamfer there. Okay, now I'm going to decide. I'm going to have a little hollowed place right here. I have a feature here, and that's going to be a cove, and we'll go from there. Let's start with a cove. It's 3/8 inch, almost too small for this cove. And I want just a tiny little fillet right here. Make that cove just a little bit bigger. And I want to round this over just a little bit into that fillet, which in turn is going to be rounded over. Just enough to get my hand in there. Now, this is where I'm going to put a little bit of a textured band. So I need to sand that to the finished finish before I do that, and I've got a pretty good cut on it, so I'm just going to do that 360 and I'm just going to spiral it across. Then I can clean up that edge here, clean up the edge there. bit on the top side. Too carried away. It's almost too... I should have probably double checked this size against the fit of the lid. Make sure it's going to fit in here. If not, oh yeah, that works great. That fits good. Ooh, not good. Round it over to get in that cove. I have to go ahead and I should have taken this out of there. Wound up getting a little draw of blood, but I haven't broken the cardinal rule, which is never get blood on the wood. And if this will hold it, that'll be great. If not, I'll get a collet chuck, but I think this will do just fine. Let's see. I've got just a little bit of a down spot there. I think I want to get kind of a little fillet right next to this. Uh-oh. That's all right. Still got the little fillet there. Yeah, and that didn't do any damage, and that gave me exactly what I wanted, a border on each end, and a nice cone top. Almost looks like an acorn. If I'd spent a little more time, I'd made it look like an acorn. That would have been cool. Next time. And there's the fit on the lid. That looks good. I need to still sand the top, so I'll do that off camera. Okay, I realized that I made this a little thick, didn't hollow out enough in the middle. So I'm going to remove just a little bit of wood by adding another feature. I'm going to add a bead or a little step right here and remove just a little bit more wood. I'll come in right here, and then I'll undercut it on both sides. Okay. I think the easiest way to do that is to come in with a skew as a negative rake scraper. Bring this down just a little bit. That looks good. Now come in right next to the bead on the bottom. And radius it around. Yeah, that looks good. I like that. It looks good. All right, let me finish sanding it. I thought I was going to wind up having to use this as a jam chuck, but turns out we were able to handle all that with a recess, so I don't need to use it as a jam chuck. All I've got to do is finish sanding the inside, then we'll reverse it and do the finish doing the bottom. Okay, so let's take the bowl out, and now we're going to reverse chuck it to finish off the bottom. I normally use a vacuum chuck. In my early wood turning accumulation days, I made a vacuum chuck within the first year or so I was turning and haven't looked back. But I'm going to show you a way that, for most of y'all don't have a vacuum chuck, can do it, the way Richard Raffin typically do it, and that's using a jam chuck. So I got an old bowl blank that's been sitting around drying for years, and I'm just going to put about a 3 degree opening here, similar to a Morse taper. Still too loose. And that nice crunchy sound is the sound of a secure fit. Let's just turn it, see how well it, well, let's do this. I've still got a dimple on it, so I'm going to line it up in there a little bit better than this. Take it out. Simple tap usually will knock those things loose easily. So let's just put this. It's always important to leave that divot at the bottom, just for things like this when you have to square it, center it up. Now that runs quite a bit truer. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring up a tailstock support. I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use one that doesn't leave any damage. It just puts a little pressure on it. And that's this 90-degree cone tip. And just give it a little bit of support until I get near the end. You know, if this was spindle orientation, I could just come along like this, but I want to go straight in order that I don't hit side grain, end grain. So we're just going to come in. I'm going to leave this ring as kind of a feature. I'll if I can find it. I'll just come in there and mark that like that. Here's some views of the final box with the top, underneath the top, and the bottom where I've signed it, and here's the finished product. Remember, y'all stay safe. Come on back, you hear? You guys know how much I love to teach, or I wouldn't be making these videos. So I do teach lessons in my shop. If you live in the Atlanta area, you got relatives in the Atlanta area, or you're just traveling through, check it out. Details on my webpage.